Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 15. Assassination. The carriage swayed back and forth as it crossed through the deserted long street in the middle of the night. Chen Xin was still thinking about what Fei Tian Ye said, and his mind was in a huge muddle. Yuan Xian personally hung his parents. But why? He studied under the Chen family. Did father not treat him well enough then? You're not totally indifferent to hatred, are you? Fei Tian Ye's cold voice still seemed to ring out next to his ears. Chen Xin closed his eyes and took a deep breath. With his head lowered, he kept kneading the space between his eyebrows with both a thumb and forefinger. Xiang Shu spurred his horse on along the long street. When passing through Hangongmen Street, the sound of gongs being beaten to sound the night watches gradually faded into the distance, and a gust of wind blew. Xiang Shu looked up at once and saw a very faint and blurred shadow leap out of the trees by the roadside, then sweep past a high wall. Xiang Shu frowned. He turned his horse around and shouted almost at the same time, "Xia!" The war horse turned back and rushed towards the carriage that was driving towards Hangongmen along the long street. As soon as Xiang Shu saw the shadow reflected on the wall, he shot towards the carriage and shouted, "Get out of the carriage!" The coachman tried taking a closer look, but he didn't see the shadow and only saw Xiang Shu rush over with a sword in hand. He was afraid that the horse would collide with him, so he tumbled over in an instant and fell onto the roadside. Within a brief moment, the shadow had already arrived in front of the carriage. It held a long, pitch-dark saber in both hands and swung it horizontally across the carriage, slicing it in the process. With a whoosh, the shadow saber cut through like it was cutting paper, and the coachman's head and body flew to separate places. The carriage was sliced right across the middle into two, and the upper half was obliquely skewed as it flew up and landed about 1 jong away. Just as the one sitting inside was about to be chopped in half. Chen Xin had his head buried in his own knees in sorrow, but a gust of cold wind suddenly blew on him from his back. Chen Xin sat up straight and looked all around him. Why did this carriage turn into a handcart? In a split second, Xiang Shu left his horse and stepped onto the carriage, then flew past Chen Xin's side. Chen Xin hadn't seen anything clearly yet and thought that Xiang Shu suddenly lost his mind and had turned back to cut the carriage into two, so his soul scattered immediately as he roared, "Are you nuts?" The shadow rushed to the wall with a whoosh. Xiang Shu flung his sword out to jab it, following which the pitch-dark shadow saber took form again and whipped out from within the wall. Xiang Shu suddenly bent backwards, and the blade brushed past less than an inch from his face with a chill that lingered afterwards. Chen Xin got out of the carriage in a hurry. Xiang Shu shouted, "Hurry and help!" "How do I help?" Chen Xin was utterly baffled as he stood on the road. From his point of view, Xiang Shu was just hacking randomly at a wall. "Great Chan Yu!" Chen Xin asked, "Are you okay? Did you accidentally kick the shaft off carriage?" Xiang Shu. As soon as Chen Xin came down, the shadow broke free from its brawl with Xiang Shu and whooshed into the ground, then swept towards Chen Xin. Xiang Shu immediately turned around and gave chase, shouting, "Light!" This time, Chen Xin saw it. He immediately activated the heart lamp, and a flash of bright light illuminated the surrounding area in an instant. Shadows disappeared without a trace wherever the light touched. The heart lamp's light illuminated the corpse of the coachman on the roadside, and once Chen Xin saw it, he was instantaneously stunned. "What is this?" Chen Xin immediately took a step back. "I should be the one asking you," Xiang Shu said coldly, then shouted, "Behind you! It's here again!" Chen Xin turned around at once. Xiang Shu took a large stride forward and blocked in front of Chen Xin with a sword in hand. Chen Xin shouted, "Ayao!" Then he spurred the heart lamp, and the weapon in Xiang Shu's hand lit up at once. The shadow seemed to hesitate for a moment but still rushed towards them both. However, Xiang Shu was even faster than that shadow and nailed the shadow onto the ground in an instant. A cloud of black fog erupted from the shadow, then it retreated, spun on the spot, and released bursts of eerie winds. Xiangshu blocked Chen Xing with one hand and didn't let him move forward. Chen Xing peeked out from behind Xiangshu and looked on in horror. WH, what Yao is that? Hasn't silence fallen on all magic? Why would Chang'an have Yaos? The two of them watched that shadow. The shadow seemed to be slightly apprehensive of Chen Xing and was slowly retreating. Xiangshu, aren't you an exorcist? Exorcise it. Chen Xing lit up the heart lamp several times to try and expel that shadow, but it would just circle around outside the scope of his illumination and not dare to draw near them recklessly. But I don't know how to. Chen Xing was completely unaware and just blurted out, aside from emitting light, I can't use any other spells. Xiangshu was so infuriated by Chen Xing that his vision went black. If you don't know how to exorcise demons, then you can just scare it away. Why did you say it out loud? Now the Yao knows too. And sure enough, in the next moment, the shadow began transforming, elongating, then launched a whirlwind from the ground with a whir. From within the whirlwind, a figure clad in heavy armor from head to toe gradually appeared. The sound of hooves striking the ground traveled over from the distance. Guards on patrol had arrived. Xiangshu made a decisive decision on the spot. He locked onto Chen Xing's wrists and dragged him back. Chen Xing didn't have any time to think before his whole body was dragged up into the air by Xiangshu. Xiangshu ran up to a wall beside the road in 2 steps, knocked into Chen Xing's chest, and picked him up. A warrior Yao wearing pitch-black armor rushed out from the whirlwind and whizzed through the air as it gave chase. Its sword was about to stab straight into Xiangshu's back when Chen Xing scrambled to raise his hand. With his left hand wrapped around Xiangshu's waist, his right hand passed through from under his ribs, and a flash of light erupted from his palm. Within that instant, Chen Xing suddenly saw the Yao's helmet, and suddenly thought it seemed a little familiar. The black-armored warrior let out a mad roar and fell off the wall. Xiangshu switched from crouching over to embracing him and firmly wrapped an arm around Chen Xing. He kicked off the high wall with one foot and passed by the wall of an official's residence by the road, then took Chen Xing along as he leapt up again and crossed through that residence. After jumping onto a roof, the two of them slid sideways together and slid all the way down from the tiled roof. Passing through another wall, jumping onto another roof, and they had already crossed through 2 residences within the blink of an eye. Only then did Chen Xing realize that Xiangshu was running away. Chen Xing, we're going to run away just like that? Xiangshu got infuriated and asked angrily, what else then? Chen Xing was being half-hugged by Xiangshu, and the two of them were very close to each other. Xiangshu had really strong lungs, so with this one roar at Chen Xing almost went deaf, and he quickly said, that's not what I meant, that monster. Xiangshu wore a glum expression and had taken Chen Xing away from the main street in an instant. They weren't far from the palace now, and high walls that were nearly 2 jong tall were just like level ground to Xiangshu. Before the time taken for an incense's tick to burn passed, they had already entered the garden. Chen Xing struggled to keep a firm footing upon landing. His head was spinning, and just as he was about to look back to see if the shadow was chasing them, Xiangshu overbearingly grabbed Chen Xing's arm and practically dragged him back to the sleeping chambers. Within the hall, 6 eunuchs were waiting to serve him. Xiangshu said in a deep voice, light up all of the lights. In the middle of the night, the sleeping chamber was brightly lit. Xiangshu then waved his hand again to motion for everyone to leave. Chen Xing hadn't settled down yet. He sat down to look for tea to drink and said, that monster is a shat. Before he could finish speaking, Xiangshu clutched Chen Xing by his lapels, and his tea spilled all over his body. Chen Xing. A dangerous glint flashed through Xiangshu's eyes. He dragged Chen Xing from the side of the table to a pillar and pressed him against the pillar. Chen Xing kept struggling, and his face was thoroughly flushed red. What were you doing in that place where that bunch of Hans live? Xiangshu suppressed his voice and was almost snarling at Chen Xing, and I actually believed your nonsense. Chen Xing struggled in a panic. He clutched at Xiangshu's wrist with both hands, but it was as if Xiangshu's arms had been cast from iron, so it didn't even budge an inch. Xiangshu's angry breaths were extremely close now, and his entire body was emitting a murderous intent that was on the verge of being manic. Chen Xing was lifted up into mid-air, his eyes were level with Xiangshu's, and he really had no other way but to employ the malicious move Insidious Kick and try to knee Xiangshu in his crotch. Not only would this move cause unspeakable harm to one's opponent, but it could easily enrage the opponent as well. However, Chen Xing had once again misjudged Xiangshu's strength. All Xiangshu did was gently flick his left finger, and he flicked the Yang Ling Quan A appointment below Chen Xing's knee. Within an instant, half of Chen Xing's body felt sore and numb. Chen Xing gasped for a long time before he settled down, then he stared blankly at Xiangshu. "I am a Han," Chen Xing finally blew up as he retorted angrily, "how is it any of your business where I go?" Xiangshu shouted, "That group of people are all plotting a rebellion. What you did was just courting death." Chen Xing shuddered. "How do you know that?" When he spoke, Xiangshu had already drawn his sword as quick as lightning. Chen Xing sat on the floor and quickly retreated, but Xiangshu's long sword was already placed against his throat. He looked down on him from above and said coldly, "You're not an exorcist, you were lying. Explain everything to me clearly. If you lie to me one more time, I'll take your dog life right now." Chen Xing couldn't stop panting. The ice-cold tip of the blade was placed against his throat. He looked up at Xiangshu and all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart for a moment. The myriad of complicated affairs of tonight was surging, and all of them flashed through his mind. "If you don't believe me, then just do it." Chen Xing endured his grief as he stubbornly said, "Come on. Kill me." He recalled what Fei Tian Ye said, his parents' deaths, Yuan Xian's betrayal. Chen Xing finally couldn't hold it in anymore. His tears streamed uncontrollably down his cheeks. Xiangshu. Xiangshu totally didn't expect Chen Xing to cry. He lifted his sword a little and studied Chen Xing, baffled. Chen Xing finally shouted, "I do want to rebel. I want to take revenge for my parents." "You're right, everything I said was a lie." "Shut up." Xiangshu shouted again. He was afraid that Chen Xing's voice would attract people over. There were many ears and eyes in the palace, and even if he was the great Chen Yu, plotting a rebellion was a huge taboo. The eruption of Chen Xing's emotions lasted for just a brief moment before he quickly calmed down again. He looked into Xiangshu's eyes, his gaze unperturbed. "Who sent you here? Aren't you afraid that your whole family would get executed?" Xiangshu finally accepted this explanation, but after thinking about it carefully, there seemed to be even more things that didn't make sense with this explanation. Chen Xing wiped his tears away and said, "I'm the one who wanted to come, why would I be afraid of having my whole family executed? My entire family's already dead." Xiangshu was stunned when he heard this and withdrew his sword instead. He took a step forward, and within the gaze he cast at Chen Xing, some sympathy could be seen. He reached out as he wanted to pull Chen Xing up from the ground, but as soon as his wrist moved slightly, Chen Xing thought that Xiangshu was going to hit him again, so he backed away in fear. The two of them looked at each other for a moment. Chen Xing didn't say anything as he avoided Xiangshu, then he slowly crawled onto his bed and lay down with his back to Xiangshu. So, Xiangshu changed by himself and sat on the main bed. With a murderous look on his face, he would glance at Chen Xing from time to time. Will the assassin come again? Chen Xing faced the wall and changed the subject. You'll have to ask yourself that. Xiangshu said coldly. Chen Xing said, Is the coachman dead? What do you think? Xiangshu answered grumpily. Chen Xing. Why would they suddenly come across such an assassin when Xiangshu was taking him back to the palace? What's the identity of the assassin? That black iron helmet, he kept feeling like he had seen it before somewhere. Even Xiangshu knows that the Feng family was plotting a rebellion in secret. Chen Xing's head hurt so badly he couldn't stand it, and he felt dizzy as he said, "What do we do if the lights go out later?" It was rare for Xiangshu to speak in full sentences. "This is my territory. If it dares to chase us all the way here, I'll kill it." Chen Xing was so tired that he didn't even know when he fell asleep. He dreamt that a huge Yao lived in Xiangshu's body, and on the long, pitch-black street, Xiangshu stepped forward bravely and picked him up. Just as the two were leaping onto roofs and vaulting across walls, the huge Yao within Xiangshu's body appeared and wrapped the two of them up with innumerable, pitch-black tentacles. Chen Xing kept struggling, but his throat ended up getting strangled. When he suddenly opened his eyes again, the night had passed without anything happening. The sun had risen 3 poles high, and the hall beyond the screen was filled with young men around the ages of 16 or 17. Xiangshu, dressed in an unlined garment, stood before a mirror as a eunuch helped him put on Hu attire. When he turned around and went out, all the young men were extremely docile as they said in succession, "Great Chanyu! Great Chanyu! Great Chanyu! Great Chanyu! Great Chanyu!" Chen Xing got up bleary-eyed. He put on his clothes and stared coldly at Xiangshu, who was having breakfast in the hall. Beautiful young men crowded the hall, and Yuan Xian was there too. He sat upright on a seat quite far back in the hall and stared enviously at the Xianbei young man who was pouring a cup of water for Xiangshu. Xiangshu glanced at Chen Xing. Chen Xing turned his face away and ignored him, but when he turned his head sideways, he suddenly felt like everyone in the hall was looking at him. There was a note placed on the table with Chen Xing's name written on it. Chen Xing opened it up to take a look, and saw that the handwriting inside appeared both bold and powerful. It was Fu Jian's handwriting. The emperor himself was actually in the mood to invite Chen Xing for a chat in Taixing Palace after Chen Xing woke up in the morning. "Does the great Chanyu want to take a stroll in Chang'an City today?" a young man asked. Xiangshu didn't say anything. After finishing his breakfast, he started drinking tea. Another young man said, "Or we could go to the hunting grounds." "Yes, yes." Everyone comprehended it at once. Yuan Xian continued, "I've heard that the great Chanyu has outstanding riding and archery skills that remain unrivaled throughout the land. I'd really like to catch a glimpse of it." Xiangshu seemed pensive, and the young man who had taken the initiative to wait upon him approached a little closer. He smiled as he wanted to whisper to Xiangshu, and Xiangshu was going to push his head away when Chen Xing suddenly looked up. "Great Chanyu," Chen Xing said, "His Majesty has summoned me. I need to make a trip down later." Xiangshu didn't push the young man aside. The young man was halfway through speaking when he glanced at Chen Xing, who had circled around the screen, and revealed a hostile expression. "Who is that guy? Why is he living in the great Chanyu's room? Did they spend the night together?" Chen Xing could almost hear the mad cries within the crowd from just their expressions. The corners of his mouth twitched. "I have no intention of snatching your great Chanyu at all. If you like that rabid dog, then continue liking him by yourselves, it has nothing to do with me." Then he stuffed the letter into his pocket and without waiting for Xiangshu's answer, went straight to Taixing Palace to have an audience with the emperor, Fu Jian. Before leaving, Chen Xing was in a very complicated mood as he glanced at Yuan Xian. Yuan Xian wasn't aware of it at all and was still showing Xiangshu a warm and genial smile. Chen Xing suppressed his impulse to go forward and punch Yuan Xian in the face. If he really made a move like that now, he would have to suffer the consequences of it later. And from the looks of it, Xiangshu wouldn't protect him either. Besides, he hadn't investigated the matter thoroughly yet. What if it was just a lie fabricated by Fei Tian Ye to deceive him in order to incite him into joining them? His parents have already been dead for so many years. There would always be a chance to find out the truth, so he need not feel too anxious about it right now. But what if it was just as Fei Tian Ye said? Since they are already dead, how useful would revenge be? His parents and grandmother wouldn't revive even if he killed Yuan Xian. Chen Xing passed through the imperial garden and sighed with a lot of thoughts weighing on his mind. He just felt like the human world was truly too complex. In the beginning, his Shifu once said that the human heart was sometimes even more insidious than Yao's, and Chen Xing was now feeling the truth behind that statement a bit. Taixing Palace was located within the imperial garden, and it housed Fu Jian's imperial study. Spring had arrived, the grass stood tall, and orioles were flying about, all clustered around a small, elegant building. One could have a wide field of vision here, and the spring breeze was fresh, and the scene resembled the play of light and shadows on a screen. Chen Xing arrived outside the imperial study, where Tuoba Yan personally guarded the door for Fu Jian. Tuoba Yan whispered, "I'll look for you after my shift is over." Chen Xing was about to exchange some pleasantries with him when Tuoba Yan made a gesture, signaling for him to go in first. Bookshelves that were one Dinghai surrounded the place on all three sides. Bamboo strip documents, books, and scrolls were all classified according to different categories and arranged according to the heavenly stems and earth branches. Fu Jian, who had an imposing figure, sat upright on a couch right in the middle of the room. Behind him hung two banners, one to his right, and the other to his left. One was embroidered with a white tiger, while the other was embroidered with a Zuyu. Hold on, were those magic weapons from the Jin dynasty? Chen Xing narrowed his eyes as he recalled that the ancient texts he read did record white tiger and Zuyu banners. The white tiger energized armies, while Zuyu calmed them, and such amazing magic weapons were actually in the hands of Fu Jian. But it was a pity that after silence fell on all magic, the two banners were no longer of any use, but he still needed to find a chance to get them away from Fu Jian. Otherwise, it would be hard for one to say what may happen in the future. Fu Jian was speaking to a gentle and elegant scholar beside him. Below them was a neat row of 24 short tables, used for princes and ministers to come here and discuss politics as well as to accept the emperor's inquiries. You've come at just the right time. As soon as Fu Jian saw Chen Xing, he beckoned and said, "Come here, let Z take a look at you." Chen Xing went forward and was about to kowtow to Fu Jian when Fu Jian said, "No need to kowtow. Before Zhen, scholars have always been exempted from kowtowing." He could tell that although Fu Jian was trying his best to be amicable, he still possessed an unquestionable sense of authority, in complete contrast to the way he spoke to Xiangshu the other night. He could tell that Fu Jian was trying his best in pretending to be familiar with scholars and would only be really familiar with Xiangshu. The scholar called Z smiled, "Whatever the emperor says goes. Since he said that you need not kowtow, you may feel free to be impudent." So Chen Xing laughed, then Fu Jian said calmly, "This is Wang Zi, Zhen's palace assistant secretary." Although a palace assistant secretary was only of a standard class. Rank 3, he was still an official who inspected all other officials, examined all memorials to the thrones regarding state affairs, and reported directly to Fu Jian, which was equivalent to being Fu Jian's personal secretary. The imperial court's recommendation Xiaolian system and final approval have to go through the officials under this person named Wang Zi, so he was an official who held immense power. Chen Xing called him Lord Wang. Wang Zi merely smiled as he studied Chen Xing and asked about his family, as if he was trying to ascertain that Chen Xing's identity was not a fabrication. "I didn't expect Mr. Chen to still have a descendant," Wang Zi said ruefully. "This is great, this is really great." When Chen Xing politely answered his questions one by one, he kept having an inexplicable sense that Wang Zi was a little strange. It was his first time feeling so restless in front of a stranger after leaving the mountain. His gaze seemed like it could see through everything. Chen Xing couldn't help but think, "Don't tell me that Fu Jian wants me to become an official after meeting me just once. Also, why is everyone so well informed around here? Aside from Xiangshu, only Yuan Xian should know about his background, and he didn't expect that this news would spread like wildfire within Viang Palace." Within a day, the Feng family managed to catch wind of it, and now even Fu Jian was well aware of it. There must be a lot more who were discussing it behind his back as well. End chapter.
Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 16. Ambush. When Chen Xing was thinking about how to politely decline, Wang Zi continued, the Chen family should not have encountered the calamity it did. War had broken out in Jinyang then, plunging the people into misery and suffering, and too many people died in that disaster. Fu Jian sighed and said to Chen Xing, it was Zhen's fault. Chen Xing understood now. Fu Jian's intention was to apologize to him, but his parents and family were all gone now, so of what use was an apology? The dead can't come back to life. Chen Xing thought about it, then said, I've been studying in seclusion over the years and have long since gotten over it. Fu Jian nodded, and for a moment the study was silent. Finally, Wang Zi got up to take his leave and said, I'll go take a look at the list of names for spring. 48 names of Confucian scholars have been sent over to be recommended for a Xiaolian examination. So Fu Jian got up and said, Zhen won't send you out then, it just so happens that I can take the time to reminisce about old times with this little friend here. Obtaining the favor of an emperor was the ultimate wish of all civil and martial officials, but Chen Xing didn't feel that flattered. It was just that he didn't come to Chang'an to seek a place for himself, and he was even less afraid of offending Fu Jian. Furthermore, there was a distinction between Hus and Hans, so they could never really get close to each other. When Wang Zi turned away, he cast a meaningful glance at Chen Xing. Why is His Majesty looking for me? Chen Xing took the initiative to ask. Affairs from the previous night were still stifling him, and Chen Xing needed some time to sort them out from scratch. Leads for the general administration of the exorcism department were cut off just like that, and he had parted on bad terms with the Feng brothers as well. Who was the assassin who had hunted him afterwards? Did the Feng family send it to kill him? Or was it the secret masterminds who were manipulating the drought fiends? Fu Jian said earnestly, first of all, I wanted to thank you for saving our great Chan Yu. Chen Xing quickly declined modestly, saying that he didn't deserve the praise and that he had just done it in passing. Fu Jian asked Chen Xing why he ran all the way to Xiangyang City. After last night's incident, Chen Xing had a vague sense that he was out in the open while his enemies were in the dark, so it was a little dangerous for him. In addition, Yuan Xin had already publicized his identity to people both within and beyond the palace, so he was a bit more cautious now and said that he was just passing by Xiangyang when he was trapped and couldn't leave. Fu Jian wasn't someone who would insist on getting to the root of the matter. Chen Xing observed his expression. Evidently, Fu Jian just readily believed whatever he said. Fu Jian asked Chen Xing what kind of books he read and whether he could write essays. Chen Xing answered honestly, studied medicine for a few years. I'm ashamed, I can only treat people and did not study much about writing essays or governance. Fu Jian smiled and said with deep meaning, a few days ago, I couldn't resist the itch to spar with great Chan Yu, but I'm old after all, and my shoulders feel stiff now. Just perform some acupuncture on me now then. Chen Xing. Without waiting for Fu Jian's orders, a palace attendant had already delivered some needles and stones. Chen Xing thought about it, then cheerfully said, okay then. Fu Jian took off his imperial robe that covered half his body, revealing his muscular, bare back. He lay face down on the couch in front of the table, and Chen Xing came and sat over. He fetched a silver needle and after burning it over a fire, he started an acupuncture treatment for Fu Jian. Aside from his titles as Emperor Qin, Divine King, Lord of the North, Fu Jian had another resounding title, the #1 martial artist of the Great Qin dynasty. Rumors has it that to the north of Huaihe River, Fu Jian was the leader of all martial artists, and most who fought him were dead. However, Chen Xing had no doubt at all that Xiang Shu had the strength to defeat Fu Jian. Because he discovered a small bruise near Fu Jian's heart, it was obviously a wound left behind after getting hit by a scabbard. If it had been a sword, then this move would have taken Fu Jian's life. Fu Jian might not be able to beat Xiang Shu. Chen Xing thought that Xiang Shu wins in his monstrous speed. Amongst all martial arts in the world, only speed could not be beaten. No matter how brave and fierce Fu Jian is, he may not be able to ward off Xiang Shu's moves that were as quick as lightning strikes. When I met you for the first time that night, Fu Jian lay sprawled as he casually said, I knew that it was impossible for you to be Shulakong's servant. You're a scholar, and just like them, you have the temperament of a scholar. Chen Xing smiled, I'm really not like them, His Majesty has misjudged me. Chen Xing was speaking the truth, he wasn't trying to be modest. Although it was part of his family's tradition, after escaping from Jinyang, Chen Xing was unlike an ordinary Confucian scholar who would painstakingly study the 4 books and 5 classics, or study the way of governance written by Dong Zhongshu and other former sages. What he usually read were supernatural stories of the world, folklore and local customs, astronomy, geography, and other such subjects. Most of these belonged to the miscellaneous studies category, and were areas of study looked down upon by Confucian scholars. The 100 schools of thought was only useful for assisting rulers, so he didn't learn much about it. On the contrary, teachings of Confucius and Mencius were the natural enemies of exorcists. As the saying goes, Confucius does not talk about strange phenomena, courage, rebellions, and supernatural beings. Confucius has even said before that, if one cannot even deal with problems of the human world, then how could one discuss the affairs of spirits and gods? It could be seen that Confucian scholars were strongly opposed to the fantasy world familiar to exorcists and instead advocated a focus on the present world. You remind me of someone. Fu Jian's eyes were closed as he said slowly, Han. Chen Xing inserted a needle in the lower third region of his nape. At this moment, as long as he stabbed the Fengfui cup ointment on the back of Fu Jian's head with a needle and push it 3 inches in, Fu Jian would die on the spot. He didn't know why a supreme ruler would dare leave his life in the hands of others. With this one stab of his needle, he would certainly be able to accomplish the great revenge that Feng Tian constantly had on his mind. But Chen Xing didn't do that. Even though he was under the protection of Iapiter, the other party had the guardianship of the Emperor Star too. If he really did stab Fu Jian, and his Iapiter and the Emperor Star started fighting, no one could know for certain who would win or lose. Have you met my father before? Chen Xing asked. No, Fu Jian answered, still keeping his eyes closed, I've only heard of him a lot. But the one Zhen's thinking about is called Wang Ming. He died a year ago. A few years ago, Wang Ming was the top brain of Fu Jian's government. He assisted Fu Jian in defeating his number 1 enemy, Heng Wen, then established a setup where the Qin and Jin dynasties governed separate areas, and helped him come up with a scheme to overthrow the ruthless and bloodthirsty Fusheng, the previous emperor. Many decrees were promulgated in the Qin dynasty to promote the status of the Han people, and he often reminded Fu Jian that the strength of the Hans was required in order to lay a strong foundation for future generations as well. If he relied solely on the Di tribe and the Hus beyond the pass, they would just be digging their own graves and perish within 100 years. When Wang Ming was alive, Great Qin was like a swift carriage that swept away the degeneration and shabby image of the Jin dynasty. The more wars they fought, the braver they got, and they were never routed for at least 10 years, and Fu Jian became a rarely seen god of war. The Qin dynasty then became the most vibrant country in the world. Fu Jian often compared Wang Ming to Zhuliang and regarded him as his closest confidant. However, Wang Ming only lived until he was 50 before passing away, and when he died, Fu Jian suffered a great blow. His temples turned frosty white, and it took him more than a year before he could gradually get over it. But Chen Xing was thinking about something else. Wang Zi, who you saw just now, Fu Jian said, is one of his distant younger cousins. Oh! Chen Xing inserted another needle and had inserted more than 10 needles into Fu Jian's back. Fu Jian continued muttering to himself, you don't look like Jing Gluo at all, but for some reason, Zhen started thinking about him as soon as I saw you. Perhaps, Chen Xing finished his acupuncture treatment and smiled at Fu Jian. It is because Wang Ming is my shiksheng. We studied under the same shifu. A realization dawned upon Fu Jian, then burst into a hearty laughter. He didn't doubt Chen Xing's words at all and said repeatedly, so that's why. Chen Xing explained, ever since I started studying under my shifu, I've only seen shiksheng twice, and we didn't speak much to each other either. The first time was in the 5th year after the state was founded. Fu Jian said, yes. That year, before Jing Gluo helped me defeat Hung Wen, he went back to Mt. Hua once. Chen Xing uttered then continued, and the other was in the 6th year after the state was founded. Fu Jian said, Jing Gluo and I bid farewell at Fusheng, attacked the Xianbei Murong clan and defeated the enemy. These were the only 2 occasions where Chen Xing had the chance to meet his eldest shiksheng, Wang Ming, because when Wang Ming was confronted with the arrival of the Divine Land's mandate of heaven, he found it difficult to come up with a strategy, so he turned to Mt. Hua to seek enlightenment from his shifu. In Chen Xing's memories, his eldest shiksheng was a sanguine and carefree person, and he treated him very kindly as well. But he was too young then, so he couldn't remember much and only remembered fragments of the conversations between his shiksheng and shifu. Your Majesty, don't move, Chen Xing pressed down on Fu Jian's back as he said, there are still a few needles. Fellow disciples N.A. After Fu Jian listened to Chen Xing's explanation, he seemed pensive as he said, your shifu has already passed away, what a pity. Then, do you already have an engagement with Zhen's great Chanyu? The 2 of you are appropriately matched after all. Chen Xing. Fu Jian, gentler. Your Majesty, Chen Xing said in a threatening voice and came a little closer, I am not familiar with him. We aren't even friends. Why does every single person think that he has some kind of unspeakable relationship with Xiangshu? Chen Xing has thoroughly lost his temper now, don't tell him it's because Xiangshu took him into the palace? But after considering it carefully, he is Xiangshu's benefactor, and Xiangshu did bring him all the way to Chang'an from 1,000 miles away, so it's no wonder that Fu Jian would misunderstand their relationship at the start. Fu Jian said, Wu. If you're not, then you're not, don't be rash. Chen Xing finished with the last 2 needles and said, it's done. Your Majesty, don't move. Fu Jian continued, since you're Jing Gluo's junior brother, you must have left your master and come to Chang'an to settle down, right? What do you think of the great Qin? Chen Xing packed up his things simply, sat down at one side and answered, I'm just passing by, I'll have to leave soon. Fu Jian was suddenly a little surprised and asked, where do you want to go? Chen Xing shrugged and smiled, I don't know. Fu Jian lay sprawled as he turned his head slightly sideways. He asked again, do you have an arrangement with Shulakong? Chen Xing, I have nothing to do with him, Your Majesty. Fu Jian was afraid of Chen Xing messing with him again, so he quickly said, okay, we won't talk about that first. After pondering for a moment, he asked, Chen Tianqi, what do you think of Princess King He's cousin, my mounted regular attendant, the kid called Tuobayan? Outside the study, Tuobayan coughed awkwardly. Chen Xing. Your Majesty, Chen Xing said sincerely, as the Emperor, you have a lot of matters to deal with every day. Why would you be so idle as to act as a matchmaker for me? And you're even trying to matchmake me with a guy. Fu Jian said, Great Chanyu and the Tuoba kid are both Zhen's good brothers. Is there a problem for me to discuss my brother's marriage affairs on their behalf? No. Chen Xing immediately changed his tune, but even if you do want to act as a matchmaker you should find a girl ba. Fu Jian laughed again and explained, when autumn comes this year, Zhen will issue a new decree, all men in the world can get married to one another, so they need not be bound by propriety any longer. I've heard of it. Chen Xing was bored stiff as he said, but I. Fu Jian made a gesture and interrupted him, ignore how that Tuba kid seems so low profile on a normal day. A man of great wisdom often appears slow-witted, he is in fact very intelligent. As a youngster, he occasionally makes mistakes when it comes to minor affairs, that can't be helped, but he has never been careless with what's important. If you're willing to marry him, it would be a good and wonderful match, and why don't you stay in the court from then on to serve me? Together with Yanner, one of you proficient in literary arts while the other in martial arts, and your marriage will be approved personally by Zhen. Chen Xing, Chen Xing kind of wanted to take advantage of the fact that Fu Jian couldn't move with the needles in him to slap him, but he suddenly thought, that's not right. If commoners get the chance to have a marriage partner picked out by the emperor and get married to the most favored commander of the entire army who's a rank 4 military officer, young, talented, and handsome, what kind of great fortune would that be? No matter how prestigious his family background was, he was merely a commoner right now. Besides, it wasn't just about being a commoner or not, even if one was the child of an official, one should naturally shed tears of gratitude as soon as Fu Jian gives his word. What reason could one have to refuse him? Chen Xing took a deep breath and smiled, we're both men. Fu Jian, that's right then, so why act so bashful? What we want is a straightforward answer. In our Di people's homeland. What I meant was, we're both men, so even if we do want to get married, we shouldn't use the word marry ba. Chen Xing was on the verge of flipping a table, why can't he be the one marrying me? Though Fu Jian was interrupted by Chen Xing, he wasn't the least bit angry and just said, if you're willing to enter my court as an official, assist Zhen in unifying the world and ruling over it and let Zhen see just how capable you are, as well as assume an official post of at least a rank 3 and above, Zhen will marry Tuba Yan to you. Where's the harm in that? Chen Xing, no, that's not what I meant. Fu Jian, why don't you ask Yanner, if he's willing to? Chen Xing, no. Wait. Your Majesty. Chen Xing heard Tuba Yan, who was guarding the study outside, cough again and immediately cut off Fu Jian desperately. If Tuba Yan actually said, okay, then a king's words have to be taken seriously, what's done cannot be undone, and he wouldn't be able to go back on his words anymore. To tell you the truth, Chen Xing could only answer Fu Jian seriously, it's not a question of who should marry who. Your Majesty, there's something. The great Chanyu has arrived. Tuba Yan, who was outside, suddenly said aloud. Chen Xing thought that he might as well tell Fu Jian, trying to just blindly arrange marriages for people and forcibly making me and Tuba Yan tie the knot is useless. I can't live beyond 20 anyway, and I'm really busy too, but after hearing that Xiang Shu had arrived, their conversation stopped abruptly. Xiang Shu didn't wait for Fu Jian's permission before he stepped straight into the imperial study. He was frowning slightly as he looked for a place to sit by himself. Chen Xing glanced at Xiang Shu, and saw that Xiang Shu had changed into a set of black martial robes and a pair of black boots today. There wasn't a single stitch of embroidery or ornate decoration on him from head to toe, except for the black iron brass knuckle on his right hand. His attire was simple, which further contrasted with the fairness of his skin. He looked just like a vigorous and upright poplar tree that stood ramrod straight, his radiance illuminating everyone else. Lots of people want to marry the great Chanyu, Chen Xing thought. If you're bored, you should help them arrange their marriages. Marry all 16 of those young men in the hall this morning to Xiang Shu, I'd like to see what he would do then. Shulakong. Fu Jian said, I heard you offered 16 marriage proposals to the Xianbei, Xiangnu, and Qiang families in Chang'an. Chen Xing. Xiang Shu didn't answer and just sat down at one side. Fu Jian quipped, you're of marriageable age now too, but if you marry 16 at one go, would you be able to endure it? Don't try to indulge too much in your youth and vitality. If you go round after round each night and contract some disease, or, as he spoke, he studied Xiang Shu with a skeptical look, do you have some other kind of preference? Chen Xing almost laughed aloud, but he reined himself in, yet Xiang Shu said calmly, cut the crap. Jian Tou, you're probably the one who isn't capable anymore, which was why you dispatched that Murong something so far out, right? Fu Jian said angrily, I'll show you what Zhen is capable of right now. Fu Jian casually draped an arm around Chen Xing's shoulder. Chen Xing looked baffled and hadn't yet understood the underlying meaning behind their conversation, but he did sense a dangerous air emanating from Xiang Shu. Fu Jian laughed carelessly and released Chen Xing. He said to Xiang Shu, or do you intend to personally try yourself? Xiang Shu withdrew his murderous intent, get lost. Silence suddenly fell in the study. Chen Xing pondered for a bit, then disrupted the quiet atmosphere, it's time to take the needles out, Your Majesty. Fu Jian motioned to him that it was okay to just take them out, then said to Xiang Shu, I heard that a Han man died on Tongren Street last night in the northwest side of the city, a coachman who was driving a carriage. Chen Xing's heart jolted, he didn't expect Fu Jian to pay attention to such a trivial affair. Oh right, if an ordinary person died violently on the streets, the government should have already intervened. But this person was related to the great Chanyu, so the government wouldn't dare to investigate it and could only report it to the palace. His mind was in a perturbed state right now, and he wanted to know how Xiang Shu would explain it. Yet he didn't expect Xiang Shu to just lightly say, I killed him, so. Fu Jian casually said, what would you kill an unarmed Han man for? That's unlike you. Chen Xing felt rather complicated, but Xiang Shu said, because I'm a rabid dog who kills anyone I see. Chen Xing. Fu Jian naturally knew that that wasn't the truth, and Xiang Shu had only said that to shut him up. This is Chang'an, not the lands beyond the Great Wall. Fu Jian's tone turned stern as he explained, after crossing the pass, we must abide by the laws and regulations here. It took me a lot of effort to bring the 5 tribes beyond the Great Wall under control and get them not to kill the Hans. What you did ruined the laws and discipline of my imperial court and slighted my imperial decree. Shulukong, don't do that again, you'll make me lose face. That wasn't the case. Chen Xing wanted to explain, but once he glanced at Xiang Shu, he swallowed his words. Xiang Shu shook his head gently, to mean that he shouldn't say anything. Fu Jian said lightly, Chen Tianqi, what do you think of the Chang'an that's governed by Zhen? Chen Xing kept silent for a moment before speaking the truth, it's governed very well. Prosperity and peace abound, it really deserves to be the capital. Before entering Chang'an, Chen Xing had envisioned a completely different scene. He didn't expect the capital to be so prosperous, and that the Hus and Hans would not inflict the slightest harm on one another and instead live together in peace and harmony. When they used to live beyond the Great Wall, they had no laws and regulations, Fu Jian said calmly, even if laws were established, most would not abide by them. It's truly too difficult to let them understand the price they would have to pay for taking another's life. Zhen wants everyone in the world be able to eat their fill and dress warmly. When the Great Tao prevails, everyone will be a part of society, and society will belong to everyone, for the old to be cared for until death, for adults to be gainfully employed, for children to be nurtured. To rule with benevolence, emphasize courtesy, and what is shown to the people should be the convention, Shulukong. Chen Xing finished taking the needles out and putting them away. Fu Jian moved his shoulders around, having already returned to normal, and nodded in satisfaction. Think carefully, Fu Jian said, this isn't like the times from when we were beyond the Great Wall. Xiang Shu was a little impatient from listening to him and just got up, then glanced at Chen Xing. Chen Xing knew that Xiang Shu had something to say, so he got up and bid farewell to Fu Jian. Yet Fu Jian said, you haven't given Zhen an answer regarding the matter we brought up before, Chen Tianqi. There truly aren't many people in the world who would dare use delaying tactics to deal with Zhen. Chen Xing didn't expect Fu Jian to actually remember. He looked at Xiang Shu, then at Fu Jian. Yet Xiang Shu left first. He didn't want to listen to their conversation. Chen Xing hesitated for a moment before saying, Your Majesty, even if I did want to get married, there should be feelings first, ba? For people who have no feelings for each other, even if you were to matchmake them, they would most likely not be happy in the end. You have so many things to deal with, so don't worry about this anymore. Fu Jian didn't expect Chen Xing to reply in such a way at all, so he burst out laughing and said, feelings can be nurtured even if there aren't any to begin with. Your answer was pretty interesting. Never mind, go ba. Chen Xing felt like he had just obtained an amnesty and quickly retreated. He suddenly thought of Tuobayan and began feeling awkward. After glancing to both sides, he realized that Tuobayan was no longer at the door, and only Xiang Shu was waiting for him. Chen Xing felt heavy-hearted as he followed Xiang Shu out. Xiang Shu suddenly turned around. Chen Xing was now on guard after getting hit and thought that Xiang Shu was going to beat him up again, so he quickly took a step back. He watched Xiang Shu vigilantly and was ready to flee at any time. When Xiang Shu saw Chen Xing like this, it wouldn't be good for him to approach any closer, so he said, I've thought it through. You didn't lie to me, you are indeed an exorcist. At Mount Longzhong that day, you used magic. Chen Xing thought, you've both hit and scolded me, and now that you snapped out of your stupor, you're here to apologize? Do you think an apology would make it like nothing had happened? Oh. Chen Xing said, so what? Xiang Shu said coldly, but you shouldn't have gone to the Songbei residence last night. Jiantiao, you already knew of their secret plot a long time ago, it's just that he hasn't obtained enough evidence yet, so he doesn't want to casually start a massacre. Only then did Chen Xing know that Fu Jian had long since caught wind of news that the Feng family was plotting a rebellion and the assassination of Fu Jian right under his nose in Chang'an City. He was just biding his time right now. On the one hand, Fu Jian has always had a lot of confidence in his own strength. This group of people who were planning to rebel against him were merely clowns to him. On the other hand, the other party hadn't made a move yet. Fu Jian doesn't want to be known as a tyrant who likes slaughtering Hans, so he at least needed to hold a criminal charge against them before executing their entire family. How would I have known that? Chen Xing said, I just wanted to look for the ruins of the exorcist headquarters. How could I have expected that they would be hiding in the Songbei residence to discuss something like that? Xiang Shu surveyed the surroundings. There was no one, so he just sat down in the corridor and hugged one knee to his chest as he fell into deep thought. Chen Xing really hated him to the core, but looking at Xiang Shu like this, he just couldn't get angry at him. The sunshine of early spring shone down and landed upon Xiang Shu. This beautiful man was truly a treat to the eyes. Xiang Shu was dressed like an assassin today, and a handsome yet dangerous air was emanating from his entire body. Chen Xing could only vent his frustrations on a tree in the garden. He snapped off a branch and whipped the bushes a few times to treat it like he was whipping Xiang Shu. In the end, they asked me to help them kill that person, and I didn't agree to it. If I wanted to do something, I would have done it today. Why would I have to wait until you came to find me? Chen Xing guessed that after Xiang Shu waited for a long time and didn't see him return, he was afraid that something would happen, so he rushed over to take a look. Speaking of which, Xiang Shu did treat him rather peculiarly. While he beat him up on one side, he worried about his life on the other. It was the same last night. If he wasn't afraid that Chen Xing would encounter danger, he definitely wouldn't have gone to the Songbei residence so recklessly. Chen Xing narrated what happened the previous day and observed Xiang Shu's expression. He thought that Xiang Shu should be a tight-lipped person, he wasn't someone who spoke much in the first place after all. For some reason, he has always felt that he could be at ease telling Xiang Shu about what he knows. There's a lead on the person who tried to kill you. After Xiang Shu listened to Chen Xing's narration, he suddenly asked this. No, Chen Xing answered, could it have been dispatched by the Feng family? Impossible. Xiang Shu rejected without even thinking about it. Why? Chen Xing said, after seeing that they couldn't convince me, they could have decided to kill me in order to silence me. Xiang Shu answered, because the Feng family knows that you were taken away by me, so they wouldn't take action that night. Otherwise, they would just be inviting trouble for themselves. Chen Xing pondered, then who would it be? But after thinking about it carefully, it shouldn't be Feng Tian, because the shadow assassin was obviously some kind of Yao. Since Feng Tian couldn't activate his family heirloom knife, he naturally wouldn't have the ability to enslave that kind of Yao. Chen Xing and Xiang Shu looked at each other. It was as if the heart lamp's power let them know each other's thoughts. The only possibility is that mysterious group who had already targeted them. They are in Chang'an City. Chen Xing murmured. Isn't that clear to you yet? Xiang Shu answered, you were acting too rashly. Chen Xing shrugged, firstly, before I came down the mountain, I had no idea that there would be a group of guys like that who would be conspiring to do this and that in the human world, and that they wanted to overturn the divine land. Secondly, when I said I was an exorcist, you didn't stop me either, Lord Protector. Xiang Shu said coldly, I'm not a protector, I just want to find out the truth. Chen Xing, okay. Let's take a step back. What's the use of acting like a zhujiang after everything happened? You, as he spoke, he studied Xiang Shu, and asked curiously for the first time, why are you so persistent about understanding the inside story of the drought fiends? Xiang Shu answered his question with silence. End chapter.